Hey y'all, it's Lissa aka Bangs and Glasses, and I'm back with one of my favorite videos that I've been doing for the past 2 years. This is my Scrap-ify Wrapped, so it's kind of like a Spotify Wrapped where it tells you your most listened to artists or your top songs of the year, except I do this for scrapbooking. So what I'm going to share today is I'm going to share my top 5 most used designers and then my top 5 most used collections from last year scrapbooking of 2024. So before I reveal my top fives, I did just want to go over the process that I do with you all in case you wanted to join me in doing a Scrapify Wrapped next year or this year, I guess, for 2025. So how I track what designers and collections I'm using is kind of the old-fashioned way. I just have little sheets of paper here, little notepads, and what I do is as I'm creating my layout, I just write down the title of the layout. I write down what collections I used or what items I used to make that layout. And I also use this to track where that layout came from, if I'm using a sketch or if I'm scrap lifting someone. So I just write that out. It takes maybe like a minute after I'm done with my page just to write down what I used, what collections I used, what designers I used. And then I keep all this information. If you watch my layout share videos, I do put that information down in the description box for you in case you want to look up where I got certain products. So I have this whole stack here from 2024. So this is everything I made in 2024. In 2024, I made 233 layouts, which I am like so excited about. The previous year in 2023, which is the year I had my son, I only did 72 layouts, which is still, great. But I'm really excited to share that last year I did make 233 layouts. So it's really exciting. So what I do after I've got my monthly lists here is then at the end of the year, I just made one big list of all of my collections. I have the designer and then the collection name, and then I just put a tally mark every time that I use that collection. So that could just be like I used a sticker from a collection. It could be I used, just that collection to make the page. I'm just counting the times I used it per layout. So if I used just one sticker, that still counts. If I use the whole collection to make the layout, that's just, one time that I used it. So I did that. I went through and tallied everything up. And then I went and put everything on a spreadsheet in just Google Sheets. So I just did a spreadsheet, and then I was able to sort this by alphabetically by manufacturer, or I could sort it alphabetically by collection name. And then it also let me sort it by the number of times that I used that designer or collection. So I was able to figure out how many times I used certain collections, certain designers, and then what my top 5 would be. So that's my process. It's pretty simple and easy, but it does just take some tracking throughout the year in order to do this. So if you wanted to join and do your own Scrap-ify Wrapped for 2025, you can start, logging that information throughout the year, so you can have a good sense of what you're using. You could be tracking not just by collection. If you're not someone who goes by collection, if you are a kit club member, you could do, how many times you use certain kits from a kit club. You could use how many times you used stickers or ephemera or mixed media, whatever you want to track. I just think it's really cool to know what you're using in your craft room. And this is me kind of nerding out over here and really diving into data. So that's my process. And now I'm going to go ahead and share what my top 5 designers and collections were. So I am going to have right here some example layouts using that designer and collection. Let me make sure I'm kind of centered here. Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to start by sharing my top 5 designers. And I'm going to go backwards. So I'm going to go like the 5th used one to the most used one, to the number 1. So I'm going to start with my designers or manufacturers. So that could be, a named designer. Like American Crafts, they differentiate between designers. Whereas like Simple Stories, it's just like Simple Stories, they don't really name the designer on the collection. So you're going to see that as I go through my top 5. So my 5th most used designer or manufacturer was crepe paper, and I used that 28 times last year. And this is an example of one of my favorite layouts here that I used a crepe paper collection on. This one was using crepe paper Moonlight Magic, and I scrap lifted this from Paige Evans. I loved doing this kind of rainbow effect here with my paper, and really love how that came out. So crepe paper was number 5. Next, number 4, my most used designer was Echo Park. I used that 51 times last year. So this is an example of a layout I did with Echo Park, and this is a double page layout. Yeah, I really love getting to use Echo Park when I mix it in with other stuff. Like there's some washi and like a big Dollar Tree sticker here, some stickers from Pink Fresh. I really love when I get to use Echo Park mixed in with other things. So that was number 4 most used was Echo Park. Next, number 3 was Vicky Bouton, which I also used 51 times. So Vicky Bouton, love Vicky Bouton. This was an example of a Vicky Bouton layout that I did. This is actually the design that I did for 30 Days of Sketches, where I was the designer last year, and this is my layout that I made based on my own sketch. There's a lot of great patterns in here. What I love about Vicky Bouton is that her papers are just so saturated, and I tend to go for her more brightly colored collections, but I just love the deep saturation of tones. I love the inkiness. I love the texture. So that's what I really love about using Vicky Bouton. My number 2 most used designer or manufacturer was Simple Stories, which is no surprise to me. I used that 83 times last year. This is another great layout here as an example of a great Simple Stories layout. This is using Simple Stories fall market or harvest market collection. Love that collection. And what I love about Simple Stories is I love all the different like ephemera pieces, all the different bits. I especially love the collections by Kelly Bangs Creative. She's a newer designer to their team. I love her collections. But yeah, I love all the different themes Simple Stories does. I feel like they have a good mix of like icons and words, and a great mix of different sorts of ephemera pieces. So love using Simple Stories. Next, my number 1 most used designer and manufacturer was Maggie Holmes. I used that 85 times, and this is one of my favorite layouts I made last year from Maggie Holmes, or just in general. And I have a ton of Maggie Holmes. I was really into her, especially when I was doing Happy Mail. She was like a very big deal. I really love her older stuff. I'm not as into like her newer collections. I feel like the color palette is a little too light and muted for me. But I love her older collections, especially for the florals, and just a great mix of ephemera. And I feel like you can just use it for so many everyday layouts. So that is my most used designer from last year. Now we're going to go into my top 5 most used collections last year, starting with number 6 here. So my number 6 most used, I have 6 because there was like a 4-way tie at the end. So Vicky Bouton Sweet Rush I used 11 times, and this is a great layout. Using that as an example, there's a lot of her papers in here, and this is also just one of my favorite layouts that I made last year. Number 5 is Simple Stories Mix and a Mingle collection. I also used that 11 times. I did a lot of Christmas crafting this year. I kind of got sick of Christmas there at the end, but this is a double page layout that I made using Mix and a Mingle. And I think I'm getting kind of close to killing off that collection. I've used it a lot lately for Christmas layouts. All right, number 4, most used collection. This is Simple Stories Let's Go. I used that 11 times. I used that a lot at the beginning of last year to document a trip to Colorado that we took, and I actually killed off this collection. I don't have any more 12 by 12 paper for this collection, so yeah, I may not get much use out of it this year, but it may be totally gone by the end of this year. So loved this collection. I loved, I think it was designed by Kelly Baines Creative. I loved all the florals in there and just the mix of patterns and prints. And this is one of my favorite layouts that I made using that collection. Okay, in my number 3 spot, most used, this is also used 11 times, is Maggie Holmes' Sunny Days collection. This is a double page layout that I made using that collection here. And I also used this collection a lot to document one trip that I took with my mom and my sister to Eureka Springs, Arkansas. So I got a lot of use out of that collection last year. All right, and then my number 2 most used collection was Echo Park. It's a boy collection. I used that 12 times, which doesn't surprise me. I did a lot of scrapbooking last year of my baby shower for my son, and a lot of those were double page layouts, and I count double page layouts as 2 times that I used it. So this is a great example of a lot of the pattern paper that's on this page. I just loved the colors of that collection for documenting photos of my son because it has a lot of green in it, and my son was born in March, so I think about, you know, green for March for St. Patrick's Day, so that was perfect. And then my number 1 most used collection last year was Maggie Holmes' Open Book. I used that 13 times last year, and this is a great page featuring that collection here. That's one of my favorite collections of all time. I really like a lot of the older Maggie Holmes stuff where it's a little more vintagey feel. I don't like to go super, super vintage, but Open Book I feel like is a perfect amount of vintage for me. And I feel like, again, you can use it for so many different things. Like you can go more masculine with it, you can go more feminine with it. This is definitely a more feminine page using Maggie Holmes, and I think it just mixes in so well with her other collections as well. So that's my Scrap-ify Wrapped for 2024. Again, I did 233 layouts. I'm sharing about my goals for 2025 and how I did overall with my goals last year in a different video. So I'll link that down below if you want to check it out. If you want to do your own Scrap-ify Wrapped, definitely let me know. I'd love to have more people join me for 2025. I'll also link down below my Scrap-ify Wrapped video from 2023. And thank you all again for watching. Let me know down below what you think, and I'll see you all again in the next crafty video. Bye!